and salutations, and welcome to the Onyx Tavern. This is your host, the Barkeep, bringing you podcast number 18 today with my good friend Raptor here.
Hello, everyone. Great to be back.
Yes, and Raptor is joining me on my first podcast since joining HeroTaku.com. We're with Heroes. So, Raptor, what is it you want to go ahead and discuss today? You brought the topic to me. Tell me what it is, and let's talk about it.
All right, so the topic I brought today is, should Bandai utilize Power Rangers' adult fan base, and how?
Now, I am going to go ahead and point out that before we actually go into the topic, I will not be addressing anything I've talked about directly in my rant video. What we're going to go ahead and limit ourselves to today is simply going to be the adult collectors market and just the adult market in general when it comes to Power Rangers merchandise and things of that nature.
Yeah, exactly.
So those of you who want the follow-up, that will be coming eventually, but not today, I'm afraid. So just kind of tell me off top of your head, what do you think the market should be? Or you start, tell me.
All right, so what I think the market should be. I base a lot of my perception of how a franchise should treat its adult fans based on Marvel and DC Comics.
Okay, elaborate on that.
Well, both of these comic companies have realized that they've had really successive generations of kids grow up with their characters, and they realize that those people still love their characters, even though they've went to college, or even had kids of their own. So what they've done is they've made a market just for those people. There are collector's figures that are kids that are they're toys that are way expensive for a kid to ever buy. And they make more mature comics, or in the case of DC, more mature animated films. I don't know if you've seen any of the DC.
Oh, I like those. They're not as good as the DCAU, but still they're pretty good.
I adore Justice League: The New Frontier. It's one of my favorites.
Yeah,
but anyways.
Yeah. Now, you bring up a lot of good points right there. And let's go ahead and kind of backtrack a little bit right here. And we're going to have to channel Lynn Carr out once more because he made a great point in his One More Day review that the problem he sees with Spider-Man is that his character has essentially been stagnant. That the reader has grown up, but Spider-Man has not. Now, I feel that sentiment to be shared with the Power Rangers. That consider for the fact that when I first saw Power Rangers, I was 6 years old and in the first grade and living at home with my grandparents and my parents and all that. I'm now 27, married, about to finish college with a full-time job. A lot has changed within that period.
Yes, yes.
Power Rangers really hasn't when you objectively look at it. That's not here or there. But the point that you are making is that you have the following of a Batman fan from the 70s can now go ahead and have Batman comics now that are more mature to his taste than what they were in the 70s before the Dark Knight era.
Even in the context of works of media that are created for kids, such as an animated series. Animated series can have elements that older fans can appreciate, such as fan-favorite characters from the comics. And see, that's another way that Power Rangers could try to utilize their adult fan base, but don't.
And let's talk about what adult fan base is out there, because let's be honest for the most part. The adult fan base out there is not out getting the Bandai stuff with the exception of this legacy material. As I've previously made clear in my point, the adult fan base is really getting their stuff from Japan, or as you pointed out to me, some of them are custom making it. There isn't a chance for them to go out to a store or locally be able to buy collector Power Ranger material, again, other than the legacy line, which, as I've stated, that there's difficulty in that right now.
Well, let's talk about the legacy line here for a minute.
And again, I will try not to go into a rant.
We're going to talk about the legacy morphers.
Okay.
those were limited run, correct?
Yes.
What happened when it was released?
They didn't have enough, and I had to wait 6 months to get mine.
Yes. They did not even anticipate the demand that happened.
And that's the problem I'm seeing is that, and I think this is really not just Bandai, but I think Saban and Disney, when they had it, is that they underestimate their fan base. They don't understand the number of fans they have and the ages of their fan. And I think it was on Ranger Board, somebody did like a census, an age census, and most of the people on there were at least 20 plus in the age. There were very few that were like 13, 12, around that age, or even lower as far as the target demographic. But again, I wouldn't expect many children to be on Ranger Board in the first place.
Yeah, just using internet forums is...
But out of thousands and thousands and thousands of votes,
yes,
you get that 20-plus crowd, and then there's even a 30-plus crowd that's out there. I mean, again, you're talking about a 20-year period where a lot of stuff has happened, and yet Power Rangers is consistently remaining to where they think 6-year-olds are still their main demographic. Which I'm not saying that 6-year-olds aren't watching the show, but there are a lot of people in their 20s and 30s who are still watching and enjoying the show and wish they could go out and get that, 17-inch platinum Red Ranger action figure that,
Yeah, just an example.
Yeah.
I can go down the street to Hastings, and I can buy an 18-inch Wolverine figure.
Exactly. But
the only Power Rangers toys in that store are in the kids section, which is separate from the adult collectors section. And all they have are those little 4-inch pieces of crap Bandai toys.
Which they still have that Rita Repulsa, which they've never been able to sell.
Peg warmers, man. Peg warmers.
Yeah. But, the frustrating thing that I have, and it goes back to my whole thing, is like, there are outlets for anybody that's an adult fan. Okay, a couple of franchises. Star Wars, Star Trek, Doctor Who, Lord of the Rings, Harry frickin' Potter. You can go to any store and find some sort of adult merchandise in places like Hastings that specialize in that stuff.
Or Toys R Us.
Toys R Us, yeah. I mean, I went to Hastings, and for the first time I went there, I saw a section for Doctor Who. I did not know who the heck Doctor Who was at the time. I was like, why is there 50,000 things of this, but I can only find one Power Ranger action figure? It seems to be a little insulting to us Power Ranger fans.
Well, it's college-age fans that made Doctor Who take off like it has in the States.
Yeah, now I'm not pretending to say I know anything about Doctor Who. It was just a shock to me when I first went there, and I saw this stuff, and I was like, what the heck is this? But I found, you find Sonic, you find Pokemon, you find Mario, you find all these other, what you would consider children's entertainment, but you have bobbleheads made out of them. You have the Lord of the Rings action figures, that awesome Gollum stuff they have. They have freaking Ghostbusters, and I'm thinking of other weird stuff they have there. Just from like franchises that are 20 plus years old or have an adult fan following.
Yes.
But again, what is missing is that Power Ranger fan following. And that's what's perplexing me here. Because is it either A, fans are not demanding and thus they're not supplying it, or B, they're not supplying it and then fans aren't asking for it? I don't know. It seems a very circular argument.
All right, let me step in there. Okay. So you said that the fans may not be demanding it, but I think the sales of the legacy morphers show there is more of a market than they expect.
But keep in mind that sale started to surge only this year. Consider when people buy Japanese figures. You can't buy them direct from the sites. Now, my sister-in-law, she bought me the Gala line from Korea. But she could not ship it to the United States directly. She had to have it shipped from the store in Japan
to her house
to Korea, and then she spent $80 to send it to me here in the States. Now, consider that with Bandai of Japan. They know that people in Hong Kong and Japan and China are buying, and Korea are buying their products, but they're not tracking how many of those are being shipped to the United States. Because never once have I bought direct from Bandai. I bought from CS Toys International, Big Bad Toy Store, and Toys and Joys. All third party. Now, Toys and Joys is in Hawaii, but again, I think they also bought from a third party as well. So it's like it's going from different people and stuff.
The point was, even though you bought it in the States, it was not directly from a Bandai.
It's not being recognized from the distributors as going to the United States to an adult audience, basically. Because if they were tracking that, they would realize, hey, 6-year-olds are not buying these things when they go and get impulse purchases. These are people that have money, that have jobs, that love the show. If Bandai could actually send toys from Japan directly to the States and cut out the middleman, then they would obviously see that what we had with the Legacy Morphers, it's going to be like double that, if not more, when we can start getting our hands on the Gosei Great.
Yes, yes.
And those things.
And let's talk about that. So, Bandai has attempted to send over some of their more collector-grade items.
Yes.
A few years ago, they released Shinken Red with the Figuarts figure.
And Shinken Gold. They released that guy, too.
And feel free to correct me, but I believe that was released before Samurai premiered. It may have been after.
I think it was in the summer, because I remember seeing it in the summer when I went to Toys R Us back home. But I think it was after Saban had bought it.
Okay, so Samurai was in the works.
Probably.
The promo images had been seen.
There might have been a couple of episodes that had been out. No, Samurai it was Super Samurai by the time I saw it. It might have been out earlier, but I hadn't been to Toys R Us. Okay, but the point is they released that.
Yes.
However, keep in mind, those are actually sold very badly. From what I had been told, those did not have high sales figures. Now, another thing to go ahead and point out, now I have not seen it personally, but because our Toys R Us doesn't do that kind of cool stuff, the Shinkano had been released as a Japanese import in Toys R Us. But I haven't seen it. I haven't heard of it. And from what I've been told, the sales of that have been pretty bad. Like, either there's not enough of them to go out, or people are just not buying.
Well, you just said the problem with it perfectly. You said you didn't hear about it.
Yeah, I mean, I heard it was at the San Diego Comic-Con last year when they released that, or at the New York Toy Fair. One of the two says it was being released, but I never saw it. And I'm sure if I go online and I type in Shinkano, they'll give me the Japanese import, but I won't be able to find it through a Toys R Us or any type of source like that.
Yeah, we'd have to check, but another franchise that Bandai has done this with is Godzilla. I'm a big Godzilla fan, as you know. And
yeah.
Bandai also has a line called Monster Arts.
I've heard of those, yeah.
Yeah, and it's figure arts quality figures for Godzilla monsters.
Yeah.
And they actually use it for monsters of other franchises, but I'm talking about Godzilla right now.
Yeah.
They sell Monster Arts figures through the Toys R Us website, but I have never seen one at a Toys R Us.
Yeah, I mean that's another thing about the Legacy Morphers that really kind of bothered me is that when they first came out, I didn't have the ability to afford it because it came out before my paycheck.
Right.
When my paycheck finally came out, they were sold out, and they actually had removed it from the website for a long time. A couple of weeks later, it came back out as a pre-order. And it was in a pre-order status for 6 months. And it wasn't until after it became available that then they shipped it to me and I finally got it. So, I mean...
Well, that was simply failing to predict the demand for them. And the Legacy Morpher is a pretty high-quality piece of merchandise.
Absolutely. Now, of course, I bought that before my boycott of Bandai of America. But that thing is awesome. I like it.
So it probably wasn't easy to, fire up the toy machine again to produce more.
Well, I mean, why did they think it wouldn't sell would be my question. I guess the thing is, and this is something interesting, I'm going to go off on a little bit of a tangent right here. I'm listening to the audio, not the audio commentary, but the behind the scenes to the making of the Two Towers. And Liv Tyler is making a comment that the original Sea of Helm's Deep had Arwen show up and fight with Aragorn and stuff like that.
Cool.
Now, this is like late 90s, early 2000s is kind of when this filming took place. And apparently this information was leaked online, and people on fan forums for Lord of the Rings started making complaints that this is not right, you can't do that. This was before Lord of the Rings was Lord of the Rings, basically, before Peter Jackson arrived, basically.
It was before it became the major pop culture icon that it is today. It was only a literary icon at that point.
However, Liv Tyler made the statement in her interview, and if you find the extended cut DVDs, they'll be on there, that they read the fan forums. They listened to the criticism, and based on that and other aspects or other problems that they had, they decided not to go ahead and do it. So this is early 2000s internet that Peter Jackson, one of the greatest directors ever, at least I think in my opinion, for at least 3 movies he did, listened to what the fans had to go ahead and say and made a reasonable change to the movie. Because let's be honest, I think in hindsight it wouldn't have worked with Arwen. I think what they did was okay.
I mean, what she did in The Fellowship, it could have worked.
I guess. But the point is, they listened to their fan base. They actually went to the message boards. So, this leads into my question. Are Bandai executives going on to Ranger Board? Are Saban executives? Were Disney executives going on the Ranger Board? The thing is, you can have the power force all that you want and have these people, but you should really have somebody in your company that you pay to look at the message boards and see what people are saying, what they're saying about your new episodes, what they want to go ahead and see in their shows. Because getting 20 people together that own websites is not the same as getting just casual fans or even diehard fans who unfortunately don't know how to work websites. And that's not a slight against anybody who's in the Power Force, Lavender Ranger, Linkara, whatnot and stuff. But the fact is, I don't think that having a website dedicated to Power Rangers should automatically make you able to give your insight into Power Rangers. It should be the community as a whole that they should be listening to.
Well, the only story I've ever heard of someone involved in the companies that create these was during SPD, that Bruce Kalish had heard negative fan reactions to SPD, not through, say, someone in the marketing department who was checking out Ranger Board. It was his own kids that were checking out Ranger Board and were reading the negative reaction to some SPD plots that got him to take notice of what fans were saying.
And I remember hearing something about that, and that's what really you should be doing. Now, I'm not saying fans should dictate every single thing that happens, but that's who you're appealing to. You don't make SPD to bring in a new generation necessarily. You bring in that new generation, but you're also trying not to alienate your previous fan base.
Yeah, so, and let's talk about that. So, a lot of people could be considered lapsed Power Rangers fans.
Yes, because you had gone out of it for a few years and then came back.
And I came back because it was a show that I had heard was really good. I know you disagree on our opinion.
But at least it brought you back, which is a positive with it.
Yes, and it was a show that I felt was well done. I thought it was mature. And it brought me back, and I've paid attention ever since. Now consider that the fans started growing up, but the shows never did. So the fans felt like, well, there's nothing for me to keep watching. I'm going to find the next TV show. And yes, there were many fans that stayed around. Yeah,
like me. I've watched every single episode of Power Rangers consistently, except for Megaforce, but that has school reasons, and that's a different story altogether. But yeah, I mean, there are people who stick with it and people who come back in, but they have to have a reason to come back.
Or a reason to stay.
And I'm going to be honest, I stay out of loyalty. Not necessarily because the shows are good, because if that were the case, I would have stopped around Ninja Storm and probably skipped the entire Disney era. Or frankly, I would have stopped at Jungle Fury. That would have been the appropriate stop point, I think. You know, it's just odd to me that a show can be on for this long, have this many fans, but there is such a lack of understanding of that fan base.
Right.
I mean, people understand Trekkies. If they did another Star Trek series, they have an understanding of what their fans are looking for. When they do the next movie, even the last movie, Into Darkness, they had an understanding. That's why they put the villain in there, who I'm not going to say because that's a spoiler right there, but they put that particular villain in because they know that's what the fan base was looking for, expecting, and there's a whole big deal about that. But it's kind of like, you know, help me out here, you know.
Basically, Star Trek has a long history of listening to its fans.
Yes, and as I pointed out in one previous video, the writers of Deep Space Nine, which you're just now discovering, were fans of the original series. So the best thing about that is you have passionate fans who are writing their favorite show. Now, other than Mitt Bomick, which I hope I pronounced his name right, I can't think of any other writer in Power Rangers that was a fan. Yeah, it's a professional. Because, I mean, yeah, you got some of the original writers like Judd Lind coming back to do Samurai and stuff like that. But you don't have anybody that says, oh, I watched Power Rangers when I was 6 years old. I watched it with my brothers and my sisters. I love that show. And it's because of that show I decided to go into writing. You don't have people like that. You don't have screenwriters who are passionate about the material, who are passionate about the fan base,
right.
To write those kinds of stories. And if there are people like that, they're not getting hired. They're getting turned down.
Either that, or maybe they just aren't people who are trying to break into screenwriting, who are setting their sights at writing for Saban for Power Rangers.
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing, and let's kind of like wrap this back into the whole thing about adult collectors and stuff, because it really has something to do with the adult mentality. Something that I have found. Now, Raptor here is the only person I've met in college so far that is a professed Power Ranger fan. I have tons of Power Ranger shirts I wear around. People look at me weird. And what's really disturbing is I wore a Mighty Morphin shirt to one of my classes. There was a freshman girl in there. And she goes, "What is that?" And I had to ask her, "When were you born?" 1992? And I was just like...
Hey, she was 1 year old at the time.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, it makes me feel pretty old. It's like, wow, it's like a whole generational gap almost between the whole thing. But you don't have those Power Ranger fans that are out there in droves in the public. It seems like it's an almost underground fandom.
Yes, well, if you think of it like this, Power Rangers fandom does not have the same prestige as, say, comics fandom.
Now I remember where I was going to go with this. I completely got lost on my point and all that. It seems to me that a television show that has aliens, magic, giant robots, and explosions, you know, thank you, Michael Bay, for bringing that just into the whole thing. But you would think that that would be the things that people would appeal to. You ask your average person, what they like? Explosions. That's why Joe Bob and Cletus like Transformers, the explosions. That was my point that I was trying to go ahead and make very unarticulately. You have, okay, what else do you like? I like monster movies, or I like horror movies where it has a monster bad guy. I like drama with teenagers and the things they go through, or adults, and, you know, space travel movies. It's like Power Rangers is pretty much an amalgam of all the cool things you can think of. The fantasy, the sci-fi, the action, the adventure.
But despite having all of those things,
they're not utilized to their full potential, which goes back to...
those things, people can feel that those things are being presented childishly.
Exactly, because the show is not being progressed towards an adult audience. Now, I don't know if they need to have a separate show or if they need to change the current continuity or whatever, but it seems to me that they need to make some sort of major change with the program in order to either realize their adult fan base or bring in more of an adult fan base, which I think economically would make more sense than what they have been doing. And go ahead and say it.
All right, so you say there needs to be a huge change or a separate series.
Yes.
But I think neither. So in the recent, well, actually, really last 20 years, there has been an interesting phenomenon in children's cartoons.
Yes.
Which has been the cross-generational appeal shows.
Yes, SpongeBob SquarePants is, I think, a good example right there.
Well, we can go back even farther.
My Little Pony.
All right, I'm gonna go back to Power Rangers' original heyday, Animaniacs.
Yes, adult jokes and humor, but it's safe enough for kids to go ahead and watch because they're not going to get that Madonna reference.
Yeah, and and I'm going to out myself as being a ex-brony here, but we're going to fast forward to My Little Pony.
Okay.
That is a show with cross-generational appeal.
Yes.
Cross-gender appeal too, but
which is the most amazing thing, actually.
We're going to disregard that.
Yeah.
The reason that it has an adult fan base is that it is a well-written show with strong characters. Even if they get into some situations that may seem child-friendly, the designs may be child-friendly, whatever, it's still well-put-together plots, well-put-together characters. And so they don't have to throw in more mature elements. They just throw in good characters and good stories.
And this goes back to one of my major issues that was with Samurai, is that Samurai is essentially a cut and paste of Shinkanger without the interesting elements in it. And I introduced you, Raptor, to the episode He Ain't Metal, He's My Brother, and its original Japanese episode. And the main difference between those two episodes is one focused on a character-heavy story of fleshing out our characters' emotions, thoughts, and background.
Dealing with their relationships.
Exactly,
family,
which advanced the character and actually was important to the overall plot of the series. And then the Samurai version was essentially, I'm going to be in a band instead of being a doctor, but only for the summer because it's important to help the children. Oh, that was a false conflict. I'm glad we got over it in less than 22 minutes.
And now I'm going to sing a song that I've never heard before, but I'm going to sing with you.
And never hear again. And dress in tight leather. But we'll talk about that episode later. But the whole point of it is that you have, if you're going to copy and paste Samurai like you did, why did you take the most interesting and best story in all of Shinkanger, which is my favorite episode, Shinkanger number 34, and turn it into something you can sell on iTunes?
Yeah, exactly. So,
and if you're going to appeal to adult fan base, you can't talk down to them. Because first of all, the adult fan base will know of that episode. We're in the age of the internet where that stuff is prevalent. They will know that that episode exists. They will see this episode and go, what the heck happened?
But I'm going to disagree with you there. You don't talk down to the kids, and so you can retain them.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have...
I'm saying that's what they're doing. They're talking down to the kids. They shouldn't be.
If you're not talking down to them, they can look back on that later and not think, oh, man, that was stupid. I was stupid. They would think, no, this was a good show. You look back on... I'm going to go back to Animaniacs here.
Yeah.
You look back on that, it's still pretty funny.
Absolutely.
It's still pretty intelligent.
And what's best as being an adult now is you can go back. I watched the 5th episode actually last night. This is really odd, but I watched the 5th episode last night where they had this party at the studio. Michael Keaton, Michelle Pfeiffer, Sigourney Weaver, a Xenomorph, Spike Lee. I mean, jeez, it took me 20 years to realize that was Spike Lee, of all people. And I appreciate it more, as an adult, because one, I always loved it as a kid, but now I get it.
Exactly. And see, it's keeping, Power Rangers kept up that, if they did the same style of not talking down to the kids, it could keep them on for longer. So not only appeal to a new generation to sell toys to, but appeal to the same ones that should be leaving with their current marketing strategy. And we're going to talk about another franchise here that has managed to keep on a lot of fans over the years. Okay. And that's Pokemon.
Okay, yeah, which you're... because Raptor here's an expert about Pokemon and Godzilla, so I'm going to refer to his... yeah.
So, yeah, there are a lot of lapsed fans of Pokemon out there, and, not everyone has to stay a fan of something forever.
Yeah, I stopped around Generation 2 just because 150 was too much for me, and now 600 plus. Yeah,
649 currently, but we got Gen 6 coming out this year.
Too much for me to follow.
It's kept a sizable following over the years because the games have been consistently good quality.
Mm-hmm.
And they have consistently had things that both young fans and older fans can appreciate.
And I have to admit, from what I have seen from Linkara and Sway and Juwario's reviews of the movies, is that they are doing that. That I can pick that stuff up. I saw that when they did their third movie review. Even with the first movie review, I could still see things that the adults would find interesting, and that, again, didn't talk down to children, even though they didn't really stick with a moral, with that. But yeah, I mean, I definitely see your point there. And doesn't it seem odd that a show that came out in 1999 can do that more than a show that came out in 1993 and really should have the bigger following with adults because, again...
It's been around longer.
And it really... The thing is that Power Rangers is really a staple of American culture now. What's really odd... And let me go into my little diatribe about this. And I may be wrong, but this is just kind of my opinion on what I have noticed and all that. Is that Super Sentai was never a worldwide phenomenon. It was contained to Japan, rejected multiple times when attempted to be brought over to the United States. And when it finally did, the whole world knows it now. You go to Africa, you show them a picture of the original Red Ranger, they're not going to say that's Tyranno Ranger. They're going to say that's the Red Ranger. That's a Power Ranger, not a Super Sentai. So Power Rangers was able to make it a worldwide phenomenon.
Power Rangers even made it back into the country of origin when Toei started dubbing episodes of Power Rangers.
Yes, and then that's what they're in. Even Korea, they're showing the Japanese Sentai and then dubbing it with Korean. But what they don't call it Super Sentai. They call it Power Rangers. Power Rangers will be able to permeate the world culture in that regard. And Pokemon has done the same too. Because it was popular in Japan, but it didn't get its worldwide recognition until it came to
America.
Exactly.
Because no one does a merchandising juggernaut like America.
Exactly. But again, let's kind of wrap this back, because we keep getting on tangents. Yeah. I think we're off our original main topic, but I think this is really just a chance for you and me to kind of vent about it, and at least me have somebody to bounce off of. So if we start getting negative comments, they're going to be pointed towards you too, and I feel much better about that. But it's the...
Okay.
The whole thing is, I feel... I'm going to give you my closing thought. Let's kind of wrap this up, and here's my closing thought that I want to say, and I want you to give me yours, okay?
Well, wait. Before you wrap it up,
okay.
I wanted to bring it back around to how to utilize this adult fan base.
Okay, let's talk about that.
And, we already mentioned make the writing stronger.
Yes.
Make it cross-generational.
Yes.
Now, there are more ways to do that.
Yes.
One thing that I brought up was to make extra material that appeals to the adult fans.
Yes,
we already talked about toys.
Yeah, but you had a great point.
One great thing is comic books or graphic novels.
Or just novels altogether. And, I want to bring this up because I think I told you. But what Power Rangers is doing with Super Mega Force is a little backwards in my mind, to where they are ignoring all the previous Sentai. Now, apparently they only have the rights to Zoo Ranger after, but that's a different story. But I had always imagined if they were going to do the Legacy War, use that extra material to your advantage. So, just as an example right here, I want to make this point. You want to use Jetman, but you can't make an episode dedicated them to the series? Release a graphic novel about Power Rangers Bird Force as a tie-in.
Or just a comic book. A one-shot comic book.
Exactly. Because, I always thought that would be the way to go. That way they wouldn't have to ignore all this other past continuity. They can use the footage without having to strain themselves with it.
Yes.
That's just kind of like my little side thing right there. But yeah, because they have Power Ranger graphic novels coming out, which are the Mighty Morphin era. But how much you want to bet they're going to end up on top of the fourth wall within a year?
Yeah, and let's talk about those Power Rangers graphic novels.
Okay.
They started with Samurai.
Yeah.
And they're continuing with Megaforce.
Did you read any of them?
Nope.
I haven't found them. That's the thing.
And then next year, they're going to premiere a graphic novel series that takes place within the Mighty Morphin era, but doesn't continue it.
And see, I'm most interested to see what they do, because I've already made my point on still stories to tell. So my question is, what stories are they going to tell?
And from what I heard, it's not a continuation. It's just...
It's kind of like the standalone episodes for syndication.
It's basically an episode as if the series was still going.
Which would be fine. I have really no problem with that. It would just depend on how they handle certain things. And of course, the thing that really kind of bothers me is my whole thing. But my whole thing about Trini. Like, is there any like foreboding about that character? Because I still wonder what's going on with Trini in the universe. But anyway, about the graphic novels and stuff. Yeah, I just want to see.
Yeah, other franchises have utilized graphic novels and comics pretty well.
Yeah.
For example, Transformers, Star Trek, Doctor Who.
And Star Trek, let's be honest, the Countdown comic that they did before the first Abrams film was far superior to the actual Abrams film itself.
Never read it.
Oh, it just explains why Nero does what he does. The thing the movie forgot to do.
Oh. Yeah, and even G.I. Joe and Thundercats. Those are all things that Star Trek...
And I saw Voltron, and then there's the IDW Ninja Turtles. I'm actually read comics if I can get my hands on the IDW Turtles.
Go to Hastings. Anyways.
Yeah.
Those are things that were, in their day, considered for kids.
Yeah.
But they can... Even though a lot of these things aren't continuing, Voltron's not continuing in an animated form. There was an attempt to, but it's continuing in a comic. And old fans of that can still get their fix in a comic.
I'm going to pass on some truth that I've learned from Captain Logan over at Geekvolution. He did a podcast not too long ago about the Ninja Turtles, and he made the argument that most franchises were at their heyday or most popular when they were appealing to younger generations. So, Adam West Batman, 92 Batman, probably, the animated series, Power Rangers, Pokemon, Ninja Turtles. Because remember, Ninja Turtles started out as an adult comic.
But it hit its stride with the kid-friendly series.
Exactly. And that's what all these major franchises did. And you can take that back to Thundercats and He-Man and things of the 80s, 70s, and all that other stuff. That the heyday is always the lighter, goofier, child-friendly version, but it is not until they do the darker, mature version that it hits its creative and storytelling zenith, basically.
And Power Rangers never had that zenith.
It has not reached it yet.
People have argued, people claim Time Force or RPM is that.
I mean, those are dark series, but it's not. It's kind of like what I think it needs to do as far as to hit that zenith is to introduce concepts that should be like death, war, I don't know, heavy themes. Because even let's take Ninja Turtles, that 2003 series. Did you see that?
I've seen episodes.
It got so far away from the '87 series, so much that it made fun of them in Turtles Forever and whatnot. But they had a lot of these mature stories. They had Leonardo getting stabbed in an episode. When would you have seen that in the '87 series? Never.
Yeah, exactly.
The day I see a Power Ranger get stabbed with what looks like a real sword, I know it's kind of reached that point, which again is not to mean that it needs to be dark, but it tells you that they are...
But we can argue that Sentai experienced that with Jetman.
Yes, and then, Sentai... Because I don't know much before Jetman, I only really the best I know is Geeky Ranger to now, but I am familiar with the previous things. But Jetman, that's where everybody says it hit zenith. That's when they had the mature storytelling, the complex characters, and if that episode of Gokaiger is any indication, I can't wait till when I start watching and reviewing Jetman episodes.
So, basically, Power Rangers needs its Jetman. If we were going to say anything else, if we had to sum this podcast up with one thing, is Power Rangers needs its Jetman.
Exactly.
It needs that. Its expanded universe.
Because expanded universes can be bothersome, like it is with Star Wars. It's not even.
I would argue that it's not bothersome.
Well, in some cases, that Star Wars extended universeism that every character who's ever been on screen for a split second has to have a complex backstory of their origin.
Life.
Well, that is true, but what I'm saying is extended universe will help Power Rangers because once Power Rangers went into space, I don't mean in space, but when they started going beyond Earth and seeing other alien races, that should have been an indication that there's far more to this universe to go ahead and explore.
Give people something to dig into.
Exactly, and that's why I'm still a proponent of a prequel series of Power Rangers.
Yeah, and prequel novel, prequel comic series.
It doesn't have to be television, it doesn't have to be a movie. I think it would be more accepted by the masses and Joe Bobs and Cletuses out there. But as fans, as adult fans, I think we would appreciate more to say, thank you. Now we have a novel we can take to read with us between classes.
Consider this. Yeah. Even if it's something that can't appeal in the same way that they're trying to market the way Samurai did. Mm-hmm. A comic is a lot less expensive of a gamble than a TV series.
Absolutely. And even if it's a badly drawn comic, if the story is good, because back to the 84 Turtles, let's be honest, by most standards, that's pretty badly drawn. It's in black and white, and it's kind of bad, but the story was engaging and compelling, and that's all you really need. So if there were black and white Power Ranger comics that had that type of storytelling of a Joss Whedon run on X-Men, or I'm trying to think of comic names off the top of my head, but something like that, then we as fans would appreciate that more, because, I want to be able to say to Saban, I want to be able to say to Bandai, thank you for thinking of me. Of thinking of me as an older fan.
Not thinking of me. Thank you for thinking of us.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Not me as an individual person, but me as an adult fan. That's what I meant to go ahead and say. So, yeah, I should choose my words better. But, yeah, thank you for thinking of us in this part of the community over here. And it just seems that's what's lacking.
It just doesn't seem like it's that hard to do. Okay, so
they need to make a gamble. They need to take a chance on something. And you know what? Here's the thing. If they take a chance on a new Power Ranger product, whatever, and it fails miserably, I would at least appreciate them for trying something new. Because that's what they did. I mean, Power Rangers in Space, Power Rangers Lost Galaxy, Time Force. Those were all new things that we had never seen in Power Rangers before, and they were successful. You could argue Lost Galaxy here and there, but for the most part, they were successful gambles. Taking a nature-based series and put it on a
space station.
A space station, exactly. It's just like, you don't do that, but you did it. You took a risk at it, and it paid off.
Yeah, but I think we're starting to drift off again. So let's circle it back around.
I just enjoy this conversation so much because there's so many things you can get into with it.
Exactly. So let's just sum it up as, what do you think needs to happen to acknowledge the fan base and, face it, dig into their wallets?
Okay, I think as far as digging into their wallets, first you do need to do the merchandise thing. Do something that the collectors market. What Sideshow Bob and the Simpsons, commemorative plates, collectors pins, stuff like that. Something that is worth a lot of money that can actually be a collector's value of something.
And they've dabbled in that.
And even if it is just importing toys from Japan, or at least allowing us to go online to Bandai of Japan and order directly, I would actually sell for that. That, I think, would be enough to where you don't have to speak Japanese or have a friend in Japan to have it shipped to you.
Yeah.
If you can avoid the middleman, that would be the first thing. And then the second thing is, I do think either they need to shake up the status quo of the series as a whole, or they need to have a completely separate series where it is like
an Akiba Ranger.
They need to have an Akiba Ranger, but focused on knowing that their audience is the audience who is the adult, who want those complex stories, who want to bring in talented writers and talented directors and take risks, take gambles on things. That's what I think needs to happen. I know you kind of disagree with that, but I think if we had 2 shows running at the same time, or at least take the show as it is now and give something new to it, that's going to get people's attention again. Because when you start getting people going, did you hear about that new Power Rangers show? It's like, it's for adults. Can you believe that? It's actually good. If I can start hearing those conversations at the dorms, then that would just be awesome.
Yeah, and I agree with most of what I said. I disagree on needing a separate series. I just think you can have cross-generational appeal with the same series, and I also want to add an expanded universe.
Yeah, I just want to see what they do. I want to see what they do, but I would like them also to listen to us before they do it, or at least read Ranger Board. Well, don't read everything on Ranger Board. Let's put it that way.
Take a look, basically.
Yeah, I mean, it's not hard to make an account unless you have a Yahoo account. That's the only problem. So, guys, we apologize for getting a little off topic, but, the thing about Raptors, we just have these great impassioned discussions, and that's what we want to go ahead and share with you guys, is that we have so many different ideas, and we have unique backgrounds for both of us. And
here's another thing. I know we walked off on other franchises a lot. We started getting to those. But the point is,
they're doing it well.
That Bandai and Saban can learn from them. Yes.
Because... Yeah, there's just so much that other franchises have done, which, people won't compare. People will never compare the fandom of Star Trek to Power Rangers. But if you want them to start looking at them as equals, because I've met Star Trek fans that look down on me for liking Power Rangers. How bad is that?
Yeah. Well, everyone looks down first, so you're okay.
Okay, so. So again, we want to thank you guys for listening. What do you guys think about appealing to the adult audience in Power Rangers? Should it go straight to adults? Should it appeal both adults and kids? Do you think there needs to be a second series of Power Rangers show?
Or would you even like just to see some comic books?
Or expanded universe novels or something like that. So please leave your comments in the comment section or email me. My address is available here at the end of the video. But we want to thank you guys for joining the tavern today. I am thanking Raptor for joining me here once again.
Always great to be here.
Yeah. And the tavern is now closed.